very excited to be chatting with you today to introduce you officially, formally to our community as a new partner. You're somebody I've had the pleasure of getting to know personally one-on-one over the past, call it, I don't know, 6-9 months, whatever it's been.
Yeah.
And doing one-on-one work, hearing about your story, your journey, your offerings, your blossoming connection with God and this divine essence that we all share. And I just am so humbled and honored to be able to extend that to our community and beyond by introducing you as someone who will be working with us and serving with us in this mission. Someone who's participating in our retreat, in the meditation, as well as someone that I know will be a deeply contributing member of our community and to this mission going forward. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation to be part of the community. It's an awesome blessing. I'm humbled.
Yeah. So this chat, you may have seen it if you've kind of like tuned into a couple other, but it's really light and informal. It's all about you.
Uh-oh.
and just in the sense of giving people a flavor of who Brian is, your journey, kind of what's led you to this moment now.
Sure.
And what you do, why you do it, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, the offerings you provide in spirituality and energy healing, this space, we're talking about that as
Sure.
well. So
makes sense. Yeah. Very good.
So I like to start by asking you to begin. And with that, just giving us, starting where you'd like, but help paint the picture for us about your path and your journey.
Yeah. So to use Awakenpedia's language, it has been a gradual awakening. I don't know that I've had this, many people have all of a sudden this light bulb moment in their lives. Mine has been more of a gradual opening. I was raised a traditional Roman Catholic family, Irish mom, Polish dad, just laid a good. So I was raised with a good intellectual foundation for understanding and believing that there is something, in my tradition, God, that's beyond us. My dad died when I was 16 of cancer, and that was probably another one of those awakening moments. I was really, kind of brought up. My dad was kind of the John Wayne guy, who, and that generation was pretty typical. Dad did a great job raising, for the family, providing for us. But when he passed away, I really didn't have any other men or people in my life that would walk alongside of me. And so, I kind of drifted. I went on to college. I was, believe it or not, was deciding between being a priest or a lawyer, which is talk about a paradox there. Met my wife in college, and through a spiritual director series of courses, I recognized that my path was to go on to law school. So I went to law school, but I was introduced for the first time, this is probably my early 20s, 2022, to a spiritual director. And at that point, I was still kind of this intellectual aspect of God, pretty much in the world and raising money. And my wife and I started our family. And we have 4 kids, raised them in our tradition. But by the time I turned 30, it was like God wasn't real to me anymore. This intellectual experience of God just wasn't doing it. I was busy, raising my family with my wife, doing the things that lawyers do. I recognize there's got to be more. And so that drawing led me to a spiritual life center in Grand Rapids called the Dominican Center Spiritual Life Center. And it was literally another awakening point in my journey where the good sisters said, we're going to teach you from a Roman Catholic tradition, but we're going to teach you about the contemplative path and in a universal approach, so that and so as I began taking courses to become a certified spiritual director, I love the fact that we studied and learned from all the faith traditions. And what we were called to do was to begin our own meditation practice, which I've been doing now for 30 years, but also to look at the great spiritual giants from all traditions, and really looking at what would be a template for your life, a rule of life, we might say, that would kind of be the pathway for the rest of our lives. And as I wrote about it in a book, ultimately, that I wrote, Finding Flow, Spiritual Practices to Reclaim Inner Peace, Balance, and Wholeness, I find that there's no cookie cutter approach to the divine and experiencing the divine, but we can prepare our hearts, we can open and get out of the world, the noise of the world, through really four things. One is quiet time, that meditation each day to really draw ourselves into our inner self and to learn over time to hear that inner voice of love. The Course in Miracles calls it the teacher, the divine teacher within each one of us, that voice. And so that meditation for the past 30 years has been something I've done every day for 30 days. It's really the core of who I am and how I connect with my inner self and the divine. Then spiritual reading, reading books and things of people that are a little further than us on the journey. Could be scripture, could be the Torah, could be books written by other people on the journey. The third is community, surrounding ourselves with a community of people like Awakenpedia, other people on the journey that can kind of encourage us, give us new language, give us new insights in how to continue that lifelong awakening journey. And then finally, spiritual gifts, discovering our spiritual gifts. What are the unique talents that each one of us has been given that we can, when we connect with them and understand what they are, we can use them to make the world a better place. And as we use them, as I'm sure you're discovering, Cam, as you're using your amazing gifts, we come alive. It's like there's a joy, there's a giving and receiving. So that became the template for my journey. Ultimately, I went on after I became a certified spiritual director through a three-year program. Also went on and got a master's of pastoral counseling. Slowly, I knew there was a second career in my life. I think of my lawyer position as a tent-making job. I was there to provide for my wife and kids, just like my dad did. But I always knew there was something more. And so as I got this more training, I started working with clients one-on-one to help them awaken to their spiritual journey. I started doing workshops and writing books and doing a daily blog or a weekly blog that I do. And slowly, as my kids have gotten older and launched, I really moved into a second career of my life, which is more 95% of the time doing exactly really what I love to do, and have my own awakening journey of finding new mentors, new coaches to help me grow, but also then being a vessel for spirit, source, to work through me to bring insights, wisdom to each person as they experience the divine in their own way. So I guess if I had to, in summary, what is a spiritual mentor? I mean, that's who I would call myself through my training. Is really it's an individual that's trained in the art of walking alongside individuals or groups in helping them awaken to and a deeper, first of all, awaken to their relationship with the divine, and then also deepening that relationship through spiritual tools. I think of, one of the things that I love my faith tradition and continue to practice it, but again, have become so much more universal over the years, in that I think we're all pointing to similar truths, just different language. But what I didn't have was a spiritual toolbox. When you go to do a home improvement project, you need a pliers and a screwdriver and practical things to do that. And I really didn't have anything in my spiritual toolbox. Nobody taught me about that. So what I really feel my mission, my charism, I guess you would say, is to help people discover a smorgasbord of spiritual tools to put in their toolbox And just like Goldie in the Three Bears, you try on different things. She tried on the porridge, she tried on the chair, and then the bed, and ultimately found the ones that were just right for her. So that's really, I feel, a passion to help people find the spiritual tools so they can have a direct experience of God, not this God in a box intellectual, which is a good foundation perhaps, but also moving more deeply into experiencing the divine in a really a one-on-one relationship. Yeah.
Beautiful. Wow. What a journey. And um, one that is so relatable in so many ways to so many because of just the way it's progressed. And something I deeply respect and admire about you, Brian, and I've learned this through our experiences together, but just as how committed you are to this path, to truth, to coming into connectedness with God, the divine, higher power.
Yeah.
Life happens, right? And there's ups and there's downs, and we get thrown and torn, and everything seems to happen. But it really takes someone who's committed to stay the course, or at the very least to come back to this knowingness that uh, these ripples on the surface are nothing compared to the depths of stillness that we find underneath. That is the totality of this ocean that we are.
Mm-hmm.
And um, just 30 years of daily meditation, continuing to expand your awareness of the spiritual toolbox. So few can really say that and speak to that from direct experience. So it really goes to show that you walk this path.
Yeah.
You walk the talk.
Yeah.
You practice what you preach as to the best of your ability to what you can, right?
I try.
And that's all.
As we all do.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you for sharing your journey with us and kind of how it's progressed, in the ways it has.
Yeah. One of the things along with that spiritual toolbox, I love as a writer, my mind thinks in metaphors. And some of our teachers say the only way we can really talk about the divine and point to the divine, which is, beyond our intellectual understanding, is to point to metaphors. And again, so that spiritual toolbox is something that really, to me, is how I walk alongside and in my own life look at, okay, what tools do I have? And am I being invited? I call them a God nudge to, just like you and I met, years ago, or about almost a year ago now, through a God nudge. Just I saw the ego death that post that you had put on Instagram, and it was where I was at in my life. And so there's learning to see that there's God nudges. And my wife calls me, she laughs at me because I like to have my head in the clouds with all this, studying and learning from people, which is wonderful stuff. But I like to bring it down to street level spirituality is what I call it. Like, how do we integrate this? What the stuff we're learning, how do we integrate it into day-to-day living? So one of the things, for example, you introduced me to was the loving kindness practice, meditation practice. And so, yeah, I love to discover, another tool that I can implement in my life, but also then be a vehicle to teach other people that maybe they find that as a way that they can connect with the divine within them and let go of that, as you say, the mind-made self, that false ego that, boy, I tell you, it's I keep bumping into it in my own life, but at least over the years, I'm able to recognize it more often, or sometimes other people help me recognize it. But learning the God nudges, where is God inviting me? Where's the divine inviting me into a deeper relationship, an experience directly of the divine? So making it practical, integrated. And there's no one size fits all. I use that kind of QSCS, quiet time, spiritual reading, community, spiritual gifts as kind of a template. But everybody finds their own pieces within that. It's kind of like that's the house, the pathway to our home, our heart space. But each one of us gets to decide what tools they put in their toolbox, and beyond that, what's their house going to look like, basically. Yeah. So.
Yeah, great metaphors. And I think it really is, it points to the essence of what Jesus says, of what every religion is ultimately saying from its essence, in terms of pointing to this one truth that unites us all, that we're all returning to.
Yeah.
And it's like, how how do we get there,
Yeah.
right? That's what varies. The
Yeah.
form,
Yeah.
the car we drive, the road we travel on, that's what changes. That's what varies. But we're all headed to the same place. And so I think being able to provide optionality for people
Yeah.
while retaining the essence of truth
Yeah.
is an art, and it's something that the world needs, because not everybody wants to be doing yoga, and not everyone wants to be, reading these spiritual texts to the same extent that I know you and I do.
Sure.
Or, so point is that there's a road for everyone, and part of your role and my role here as partners in this mission is about helping people to discover the road that suits them best for their travels.
Exactly. Yeah. And I write this blog that comes out every Monday. I call it Simple Wisdom for Everyday Living. And it's always something that I'm chewing on in my own life that comes out on Monday. I usually start at the beginning of, like, I started yesterday writing it for next week, sent it to my editor. But one of the terms I came across that I wrote about in a recent blog was this term of interspirituality. I can't remember the name of the book that I came across that, but this gentleman, he recently died, I think last year, but what he's saying is that all of the traditions, be it Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, whatever they are, that each Judaism, the Jewish tradition, they all contain truths. And we can learn from each one of those traditions, stay, rooted in our own tradition, and use it to grow deeper. But to recognize, in essence, we're all pointing to the same universal truth. I love the Course in Miracles where she says, there's perceptions which are changing, and it's just my perception of this is going to change all the time. And then there's truth. And truth is unchangeable. And so rather than getting caught up in language or trying to convert everybody to, I call it my country club, my spiritual country club, it's like, can't we learn from each other? We're pointing to the same truth, maybe using different language. And I think my sense is that's what Spirit is up to. I think that's what Awakenpedia, why I'm attracted to be part of this amazing, movement of the Spirit. That you're spearheading, Cam, is that there is that sense that we can learn from each other's traditions and then integrate it in our way that makes sense to us. Thomas Merton is my one of my heroes. I love the fact he those that aren't aware of him, many of you probably are, but he lived a pretty naughty life growing up. He was a carouser, he was a wild man, I like to say, but he had that awakening moment and ultimately became a monk and brought the contemplative tradition to Gethsemane, the Abbey of Gethsemane, where he was, and to the world, quite frankly. I think he really brought the Eastern tradition of contemplation, meditation into the Western world, which is so thirsty for that, to quiet this mind. But Merton, and as my model, I loved, he would always, he'd go study with the Dalai Lama, he'd go meet with, different spiritual leaders from all traditions, Thich Nhat Hanh, Henry Nouwen. And what he did was he said, I'm not here to convert to those traditions or convert them. I'm here to learn from them, to make my tradition, the way I experience the divine, even deeper. And so I think that's the pathway. I'm hopeful that in the midst of a world that feels very chaotic right now, wherever we're at, I mean, there's a lot of, as there has been over the centuries for sure. Christ's time, it was a pretty messy world back then too. We just learned more about it. But my sense is that there is a movement of spirit for each one of us to that direct experience of God, learning from each other, and then integrating the tools that work for each one of us uniquely to deepen that awakening experience of God as each one of us understands the divine, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's such a fascinating experience when you really surrender over into it and let go of what you think you know, and just release that perception of control, so that you can actually step into the unknown through the embodiment of the unknown.
Exactly.
And when you let go of your mind, in other words, that's how you could describe that process there as transcending your conditioned mind, so that you rise beyond that mind-made self, so that you see through the eyes of God. You see from the seat of the soul, you see from the place of love. And when you're seeing from love rather than fear, your experience of life completely transforms. And that's what we're doing here, right? That's the work that you're doing. That's the work that I'm doing. We're all co-creating and extending the love that we are, and doing that in these variety of ways. It's the song of existence, as is said often.
And I think in our culture, while the mind is a good thing, how many of us are trying to quiet the mind? It's like, be quiet. It's just rattling like crazy. And we've forgotten we're mind, body, and spirit. And so what I appreciate, both what you're teaching and what I, continue to integrate and teach as a vessel myself, is that aspect of, as we allow the mind through meditation, through different spiritual practices, different tools we use. I love this thought. My mind sinks into my heart space, and my mind kind of goes, oh, thank God, I'm tired of doing all the work here. But I'm so grateful that my heart now is integrating mind, body, and spirit. And it was interesting because I learned from you over the last year or so, this aspect of saying, who are we? I am. And it was funny because one of the things during our coaching sessions I asked you was, can I add a word to that? Like, I am pure spirit, I am da-da-da. And I love what you said is, well, you can, unless it's drawing you right back into that mind-made self that you're trying to control. So I love, again, a spiritual practice is to just, for me, and as I continue to be a vessel to teach others, is I am mystery, I am essence, and the pure essence of God's divine love in this human form, not the fullness of God or divinity. Thank God I'd probably mess things up, if I the minute I think I am, but to open up to the fact that we are the I am, the essence of God's pure love. And boy, that moves us into a deeper truth. It's not perception anymore. It's, whoa, this is, and I can connect with this I am that formed me, that created me, that source, to guide me and affirm who I am. And it's like, wow, all of a sudden there's mystery, but there's also the paradox of mystery and know that you know that you know. And that's, I think, the fun journey of it, is letting go of the mind-made self, recognizing the I am, which is who we are, and then connecting with divine spirit in ways that work, individually for each one of us, or as groups too, for sure. So
yeah. And what's beautiful about that too is, if we all are the I am what you are, and you are what I am. So we are one being, one love, and that's what heals us. That's what heals the separation that we feel from each other, that creates the egoic dysfunction. And so that's how we restore the wholeness of mind that is otherwise split, that causes us to fight and war and violence. And, all this craziness, insanity.
Exactly. Yeah. The dream, as the Matrix tells, exactly. So, yeah. And I think other thing we're learning in this, again, in that, as we look at the different boxes, quiet meditation, whatever form that is, could be yoga, could be walking in nature, could be sitting on a meditation cushion, whatever works for each one of us, to get away from the world for maybe 20, 30 minutes, an hour or longer every day, connect with the divine in our inner self with a capital S, spiritual reading, community gifts. That community, in the Eastern tradition, they always had a teacher. There was always somebody that you would go to learn from, and you were the student, the disciple. I mean, Jesus was called the rabbi, meaning teacher. Buddha, look at how much we're learning from him as our teacher. And I think that's the other thing we're recognizing is one of the ways spirit moves through us is those, what I call God nudges, where we go, I think I'll reach out to Cam and just find out a little bit more about this. And when it draws us closer to spirit, to the essence of who we are, we can confirm, yes, this is drawing me closer to the divine. So I need to continue. It's a nudge from spirit. If it draws us further away and all of a sudden, we're worshiping our belly button, well, maybe it's not the right pathway. My egoic mind brought me there. But so, yeah, having teachers in our lives that come and go. Some stay forever, but so certainly, you've been my teacher, Cam, in many ways. As a spiritual director, I'm a vessel to just allow others to find that sense of who they are through the writings I do, the weekly blog I do, through workshops. Walking one-on-one with individuals, in whatever way spirit leads me. I often think of whenever I am ready to do a workshop or even today to meet, I have this. I had a gal years ago from the Islamic tradition, and she said whenever she feels spirit, it's like there's this energy she can feel, a divine light that goes in here and fills her and then goes out. And so for me, that's source. There's a physical, whenever I'm doing spiritual direction workshops, and just connecting my own personal life with the divine, there's this sense of this divine energy of flow. And so I always pray for the grace of emptiness, because my egoic mind is going to get right in the middle of everything. And so I often pray for the grace of emptiness. I learned that from my own spiritual mentor, my own spiritual directors, praying for that grace of emptiness. Because in essence, what we're doing is getting out of the way. My buddy Ralph, he always does this hand motion that open your heart. It's that physical opening our heart so that we can be filled with whatever it is spirit wants to offer us. And it's hard in our culture, as for sure, for all of us, even people like you and me that are seekers on the path. That sometimes we stumble upon our own selves along the way. But if we can surround ourselves with other people that are in our lives to help us grow and do the quiet meditation, recognize our spiritual gifts. A lot of this stuff is on my website for free. I have a free resources tab. There's a spiritual gifts inventory that people can take to learn what their gifts are, like I did when I was in my 30s. There's a how to pray type thing. Who's in my inner circle of trust is the community free resource I provide. And when you download those, then you also get connected, sign up for my weekly Monday email that goes out and stuff like that. So yeah, just finding a smorgasbord of ways that spirit is leading us to draw closer in that direct one-on-one relationship, moving beyond the intellectual understanding of God, which is good. There's, we're mind, body, and spirit, but we get stuck in the mind. And so, the other is, where is spirit moving me? The fancy word is discernment, discerning where, the divine spirit is leading us to our highest good, which is the fun thing is, it's not this spirit that's going to beat the bejesus out of us, which is kind of what I grew up with a little bit in my tradition. It's like, no, letting go of spirit is always drawing us to our highest good through individuals, through our own direct experience of God, and to open our hearts to that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So Brian, let's if you are willing to share, I'd love to dive in a bit deeper into the specific offerings that you provide.
Sure.
I know we kind of just touched on them. You mentioned a few, but I'd love for you just to kind of give the community a bit more of a kind of detailed flavor and overview of the various, I don't know how you say the smorgasbord of offerings, to help people come back home, to come back to love. So yeah, can you just give an overview of the different things?
The first, probably the most important piece that I do is every week I write a spiritual reflection blog, and it goes out every Monday. So people on my website, brianplachta.com, can sign up for that. It's a way of just staying connected. A lot of times I've got probably 1,300 subscribers and growing, which is really fun. And people will email me, and it's a way of interacting with people as they read the blog. And I try to make it a realistic thing. Like the one I'm working on right now, I notice in myself as a craving. I'm like craving how many likes do I get on Instagram? I'm craving people's approval. And so the blog that I'm writing right now, it'll come out on Monday, to my editor, is how do we stop this craving that the Buddha says is the source of our suffering, craving and attachment? So the first would be that weekly Simple Wisdom blog. And I really try to, number one, make it real about what I'm experiencing. So I kind of make some fun at myself in the midst of it. But more importantly, what are the universal truths that I'm learning from other people that other people can integrate? So that would be one, the Simple Wisdom Monday email to sign up for that. The other is one-on-one spiritual mentoring. The beauty of COVID, I mean, it was certainly a terrible experience nationwide or worldwide for us. I think it's drawn part of the Spirit's movement. We're experiencing the universal church. So you can be down in Virginia and I can be in Michigan. People could be, I see there's people from the UK that are here, so I really think that out of bad comes good. So we can do spiritual mentoring one-on-one through Zoom or face-to-face if people, want to get together locally. So spiritual mentoring one-on-one would be that. I always invite people to, just like Goldilocks on spiritual mentoring. Some people think, oh, that sounds so scary, but usually we just do an introductory session, like half hour, an hour of like, what is it? What are you searching for? Really helping the individual, one, learn what spiritual mentoring is about, and then finding out what their needs are. What do they want? Because it's all about them. Really, as you started out today, it's all about the individual. How are they experiencing or not experiencing the divine flow? I call it divine flow in their lives. So that would be a second way. The third is through workshops that I do, and things that I'm learning. What I like to do with the workshops, I do the free workshops, but I'm finding that community piece is missing. So, you introduced me several months ago to the loving kindness meditation practice. And as I always do, I just dove in to learn from, the TWIM website and Bante's teachings, the Buddhist monks teaching that founded it all. And so I offered a free workshop to learn what it was. And then, because so many times you go to a workshop and say, oh, great, this is great. A couple of days later, you're just back doing the same thing. And there's that sense of being alone. So typically I try to offer a circle, a follow-up circle, like 3 months. So what we did, for example, with the loving kindness workshop is those that wanted to go deeper, they could sign up. And we meet once a month for an hour and a half, 2 hours on Zoom. And we just do it for 3 months so that there's not like this, I've signed up for the rest of my life. It's a sense that people can taste and see what that inner circle. And usually we get, very small group, which makes it very intimate. That, the current circle is 7 to 10 people, which is great. You can feel the synergy among the community growing and they're from all over the place. And at the end of the 3 months, I invite the circle to discern, do we want to continue in another 3 months? Are we good? Let's forget. Do some people want to drop off and we add other people? So it's really, again, not just taking the teachings, but also creating community to help people continue to grow with it if the teaching is one that makes sense to them. So there's the workshops, but then the follow-up circles. There's another circle I do called an Inner Compass group online and in person if people want to, where, again, a small group of people get together from a technique I've learned where we enter into the quiet, again, once a month for 3 months and then evaluate. The group enters into the quiet with a Lectio Divina or some kind of grounding practice. And then one person just presents what's going on in their lives, the lens of their relationship with God, and practical things like I'm retiring and I don't know what to do with the rest of my life, or I'm struggling with an addiction, or I just want to celebrate something really wonderful happened in my life. And so that person will offer uninterrupted just what's going on through the lens of their relationship with God. And then the group goes back into the quiet to, again, not to fix it, not to offer solutions, but to listen to spirit, to be present to the divine for that person. And then after a couple of minutes, we offer what it rose up with me. It could be a scripture, could be a song, could be an image, a metaphor, a word, just whatever it is that spirit places on them. So that's another fun way of doing that. The other is books. I've self-published a couple of books. most recent one from Paulus Press is Finding Flow, Spiritual Practices to Reclaim Inner Peace, Balance, and Wholeness. And that book really is the kind of cementing piece of these 4 spiritual practices that I've learned over my life, since age 30, but also that becomes a nice little template that we can use. So the book, Finding Flow, Spiritual Practices, Reclaim Inner Peace, Balance, and Wholeness, is available either through my website or it's on Amazon, both in a Kindle format and in a paperback and stuff. And also sometimes people, as they're reading the book, they'll say, could we do a online study? So I've got a couple of people that reach out to me and say, could we take a chapter a week or a month and just offer questions and talk about the book? So there's, in addition to the book, trying to make it real. If people want to really do one-on-one study or a study group about the book, making that available. And also going around to doing live workshops on, I just did one, a men's group at a local church here in Michigan called Listening for God Knows What. Does God have a voice and how can I hear it? And so again, just taking these topics of helping us take funny, cool things, but how do we learn to hear that quiet whisper within us? So so that's kind of the primary thing. We're working on a book proposal right now called, and I think it's going to be, actually, I was talking to my buddy I work out at the gym. He's my spiritual friend, about a workshop called, which is actually the title of the book I'm working on, which is Finding Your Way Home, the Contemplative Path to the Direct Experience of God. So I think, again, I'm listening to Spirit. What would be helpful for people? So I think that's going to be the next free workshop that I offer along with this book that I'm working on. So I'm just letting Spirit, guide me and kind of, although I do have a home, I'm kind of a spiritual nomad on the inside. I'm really about having fun of where's Spirit leading me to be a vessel to help other people grow. But those are the primary ways right now that I do that. But yeah.
Yeah, and so important, Brian, like the way you are open to letting Spirit guide you in the most authentic, humble, surrendered way. It's so important to making progress, what we can call progress on this journey, because that type of spiritual, psychological flexibility is required in order to actually see, hear, and follow the Holy Spirit, God, that whisper of the inner voice. If you're rigid and stuck in belief and stuck to certain ways, it prevents you from actually continuing home.
And interesting, another way is on my Instagram page every day. And when I'm done my quiet time, I post 3 inspirational posts. One is that I've written, that kind of, I ask Spirit, what should I put out there today? What do you want me to put out there? And then 2 inspirational quotes from others. It's interesting because through those posts, sometimes there's a gentleman that reached out to me from Canada, and a Jewish individual, and he's just suffering with self-worth. He thinks he's a bad person. And so we've been chatting. He doesn't want to do a Zoom, so we've been chatting through social media once a week, and just helping, facilitate his own awakening to, he started out with, I'm not a spiritual person. It's like, okay, it's that cool, But then, we work, that's one of the things I love to do is, do you believe in a power greater than yourself? What would that be? And he's like, yeah, I do. I raised, went to synagogue and did it. And again, I'm not trying to convert him to Christianity. I'm just walking alongside him in his Jewish tradition and learning from him. But I said, do you have a word that you would use for the divine? He says, head coach. He's a real sportsman. He played high school and college, and he loves sports. And he always had a coach that meant a lot to him. So, let's call the divine head coach. And so slowly he's beginning to develop this relationship. I've invited him to begin meditation with some guided meditations on my YouTube page. Brian Plachta, I have about 31 guided meditations under that playlist. And so he's kind of picking and choosing which ones speak to him and then doing 30 minutes of meditation. So yeah, just, meeting people where they're at and helping them really discover what's inside of them. Because as you know, I mean, and probably many of the listeners, nobody can teach us how to find God. It's an inner journey, and but others can walk alongside us and share their stories, share the spirit inspired wisdom, and we can pick and choose what works for us to grow deeper in that relationship. But it does mean walking away from the dream, the mind made self that, boy, this culture has really instigated into us. And as a lawyer, I tell you, I had to walk away from that. In fact, I still trip into this mind-made stuff. I want to intellectualize everything, and I'm learning too to get out of the mind. The mind's a good thing, but get into heart, mind, body, and spirit together. So yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah, yes, and I do just want to affirm for those who are listening, tuning in now, and those who will, as this will be shared in your partner profile. But I've had the joy of being able to partake in one way or another in all of those various avenues that you mentioned that you serve through, whether that be, the mentorship, the workshop, or your books, or your blogs. I'm part of all of those in one way or another. And, I can just really affirm the quality of consciousness and spirit that you're able to allow to enter into all of these different pathways. We do one-on-one work together, but you're as much my teacher as I am yours. We learn as we teach, right?
Yeah.
And we teach as we learn. So it's an interesting dynamic. And I've sat in on the loving kindness workshop. I have your book Finding Flow, which I just started reading, which I think is brilliant and very simple and helpful for people to just kind of get into this heart space. So yeah, look, it's not often I can personally speak to every offering that some partner of Awakenpedia provides, but in our case, we've had such an extended period of time together that I've been able to. And so I just want everyone to know that the quality and purity of your work and your contributions to this mission.
I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for sure.
So we're getting to the point of wrapping up here, Brian. I like to end these things by asking us both to kind of just take a breath, come back into this stillness, and I ask for you to share any bit of guidance or wisdom that you feel is being called in this moment, that you'd like to share. And it can be in any context and for any reason in terms of speaking to anyone at any point on this journey, but something that you can share that will help people on this spiritual path.
What rises up with me is something a teacher said to me 30 years ago. Take a step, but make it the biggest baby step you can take. And to me, that's the spiritual journey. We get locked in this, I call it God in the box, or we reject God because, I call it a spirit, we're in spiritual rehab, or we in a tradition that has God in a box and we want to get out of that intellectual and moving experiential, or we're spiritual but not religious. Wherever we're at, and I think that's a lifelong journey. We never arrive. We always approach it with a beginner's mind. And that means we are growing because we are an empty vessel to grow. But yeah, I would what rises up with me is what a teacher said to me, take a step, but make it the biggest baby step you can take. Yeah.
I love that. That's I've never heard that one either, by the way. And I've heard a lot of these, so
you can use it too.
I may just use it now, because I think that points to, in many ways, so much of the essence of this journey, right? Which is the willingness, the faith to take a step, and the courage to make it as big of a leap of faith as you can.
Yeah.
In the sense of just really surrendering and not looking into a destination or an outcome, but just what's right in
Yeah.
front of you, this here and now, this
Yeah.
moment. Take
Yeah.
a moment, take a step this moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the leap of faith is to make it as big of a step as you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, and I know we got to go, but the metaphor that the individual, Brian was his name, actually, he was a retired lawyer. That was my mentor way back then. He used the image of we're standing in a river. You know how rivers has big stones and you can walk in the river. So you're on this stone and you're kind of looking around. Okay, we don't want to go back because we've already come so far. But the question is, what's the next stepping stone that I want to take? And what, as we take those and assess, is this the right movement for me? Is this the right step? All of a sudden, it's kind of like we go, wow, that was spirit moving within me. So we take it's like we're walking through the river of life, the divine flow, and moving to the next stepping stone to go deeper and deeper. Whether we're beginners or we're somebody that's been practicing as a seeker for a long time, there's always, where's spirit leading me to the next stepping stone? So yeah, take that baby step.
Beautiful. Well, Brian, thank you so much for
Mm-hmm.
being here today, for trusting your interfaith to be a part of this journey and mission, more even deeper now than you have before. We're very blessed to have you with us as a contributing presence to this space and mission. And I speak to that from my own direct experience in working with you. So I look forward to this relationship continuing to blossom and unfold, and to see how you serve those in and outside of Awakenpedia. And for those who want to learn more about Brian, they can go into our member forum, check out your profile. You'll have your bio, booking links, all that good stuff in there.
Super.
This video for people to watch.
Sure.
So
Good deal. Yeah,
until then,
thank you.
Brian,
Yeah, thank you to everybody in the community for your spiritual journey. It's a blessing for all of us. We're all each other's teachers.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
All right. Talk soon.
Okay, God bless.
Bye-bye.